I'm gonna have to hold
it. And we are live.
You are now tuned in to Mind, Body, and Soul with Annette, where your hosts, Annette Harris, analyze intriguing life questions and concerns, such as, do Christians suffer from mental illness? Have you wondered why they act abnormal? Or you may ask, what is really going on in their minds? Do you need a net? Well, keep listening for a biblical understanding of the psychology of the mind.
That voice sounds familiar. Hey guys, it's your girl Annette Harris of Mind, Body, and Soul with Annette. And we are so excited to be here with you on this afternoon. Come on in, guys. Come on in. Come on in. I'm excited and also in anticipation of today's session. So before I do anything further, I'm going to pray. Lord, we thank you for this wonderful day that you've blessed us to see. We thank you for all that you have done. We even thank you for all that we're experiencing now and how you are actually drawing us closer to you. We ask that you would get the glory out of this session and everything we go to say and do. In Jesus' name we pray. And our opening scripture is the first part of Hosea 4:6. And it states, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Because thou hast rejected knowledge, I will also reject thee. And again, we are excited to be here on this afternoon. It is another Wednesday, another time for you to come on in and get caught in the net. Just come on, come on. I've already asked you, and I will ask you again, and please go ahead, like and share, throw some hearts up, throw up the thumbs up. There is even, I think, a care button on there too. I love to know that you care. So you can throw that up as well. Make sure that you are tuning in and that you are encouraging others to do it as well. You see already in my midst, I have two beautiful young women here on this afternoon with me. They neither are strangers to mind, body, and soul, and they've both been caught in the net at some point in their lives. I am, you see, my beautiful sister, my blood sister, my sister from the same mother and father, Gwendolyn Gaston Gray is here with us. How are you doing?
I'm awesome today. I am awesome. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. I'm doing
Good.
wonderful.
Good.
I'm eager to get into today's segment. I'm eager to talk with you ladies on today. And then, of course, to talk with others that will be joining us. And then you see also my other sister, my sister from a different mother and father, Demetria Brand Triplet is here with us on this afternoon. How are you feeling, sweetie?
I'm doing well.
You're doing well?
Thank you for having me on.
Okay, well, thank you for coming on, my darling. I'm not sure if that crown on your head is making you talk that way, but I love it. I love it.
No, I'm on here with my beautiful Gaston sisters, two of the three. So, you know, I've got to step my game up. I can't come on here all good and everything today.
Oh, how funny you are. How funny you are. But you know what? It's funny because, you know, I'm at some point, and I'm going to get my older sister on my show at some point. So you are standing in today, got the same first name, but you're standing in and helping us out with this conversation on today. Ladies, I wanted to talk today, like I have it here, a sister chat. I want, you know, we all know what's happening around us, what has been happening, and we don't necessarily have to go and just kind of like go through all the sequence of events because everybody knows. If you don't know, maybe you're living under a rock or something, you know, I don't know if you just choose not to, you know, maybe you choose not to know. I don't know, but I don't know how you can get around any of this that we're dealing with now. We've gone from the pandemic to this situation that we're dealing with now that is not, it's not easy. And I have not seen this. I haven't seen what's been happening in the world. I've never seen it on this order. I haven't personally. You hear about, our history. You hear about things that we've dealt with even as a people. But I haven't been there. I'm only 52 years old, so I've never experienced this. So it's different. It's different for me. So in this sister chat on today, I really want to talk about how this is affecting us psychologically. We see, unfortunately, how our African American men are being their lives are being snuffed out, in one way or another. Now, let me say this before I get into anything else. I want you guys to know that are listening to us, that are watching us on today, this is going to be real, raw, and uncut. People call me a crybaby, but you're going to see some tears on today because of how everything has come across. And then you see, the reactions of different ones, and how it has affected them. So you're going to see it on today, because we just want to sit down and talk. Let me recognize some individuals that have jumped on already. I see you, Beatrice. I see you, Apostle Hunt. Thank you so much. Elizabeth Madison, we appreciate you for watching. LaShonda Lewis is on. I know some people had actually, they asked me a question, ladies, and I'm gonna throw this in here real quick. They were like, well, can you also deal with, or are you gonna deal with those African-American women that have been, their lives have been snuffed out? Well, today I really want to focus on our men. I really did. We're not leaving that out. We're not disregarding. We know Sandra Bland. We know a lot of them, unfortunately, whose lives have been taken away from them. But I want to talk about our men and how this is affecting us, our men. These are our men. We are daughters, we are wives, we are mothers, we are sisters, and this bothers us. And you can see it too, even in the protests and different things, and how if different ones are getting on expressing themselves. So no, we're not disregarding them, but I want to focus on them because you know why? Our men are the head. They are the head. And that's who we look to, and if you go according to the word of God, that's who they're supposed to be the head of our house. So this is affecting us. Gina and Dr. Wiley, I see you on. Thanks so much. Please, guys, go ahead, like and share if you're just now joining us. We're just getting in, so you haven't missed anything yet. Okay, Sister Chat today. We want to talk about how this is affecting us psychologically, seeing all of this being played out in the news, how it's being played out around us, even in our own personal areas. Some even those who were there in Minnesota when this happened to George Floyd. There were some Black women that were there. Ladies, let me ask you, because I can talk all day. What is my first question? As an African-American woman, how do you feel about the attack that has been happening on our men? That's a simple question, and I'm sure it's going to generate a lot. I don't know who wants to go first.
Well, you know what? If you don't mind, I'll start. I think I'm the oldest among the group, so I think I'll pull a little rank right now. Hopefully you can hear me okay. And I've smiled in the last 10 minutes since this recording or this podcast or this live has started. I smile through hurt, through pain, because by God's design, I am female and I am a nurturer. So I speak from the standpoint of a sister, a daughter, a mother. And it hurts like you would not believe. I'm 55 years old and I've seen a lot in my lifetime. But, you know, to quote Fannie Lou Hamer, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. I have not seen as much as the generation before me, my mom's generation, or even my grandparents' generation, because a lot of those people are still with us. But yet and still in my little 55 years, I'm tired. Because you couple all of this with, things that we go through even as African American women. But you both know I like to start from the beginning. And that's when we were brought on these shores in 1619. We were separated from our men. We were taken from our homeland. We were separated from our men. And we were left to fend for ourselves without our men. Even within the horrific system of slavery, we did marry, and they still took our men away from us then. So it didn't just happen when we walked, set foot on the shore, but it continued to happen. It continued to be perpetrated. It is still happening today. They are taking our men. They are taking our powerful kings. They're trying to snuff them out. It's a different type today, but it's a version of slavery nonetheless. And the hurt, my hurt, is further exacerbated by, those non-Blacks who would attempt to change this narrative. And they do that in all sorts of ways. But what about the Black on Black crime? What about this rioting and this looting? Are you guys going to decry that? That's not what we're talking about. You have to face what you've been doing to us for hundreds of years. And I also can't stand to hear, well, those were our ancestors. We didn't do anything. Yes, you did, because you have not spoken up. You have not stood up. You have not decried this. And guess what? You are benefiting. Your wealth is as a result of what we did. So yes, you are culpable. You're culpable. So you must stand up. You must cry out. And I'm sure we're going to get into the rest of this a little bit later, the systemic racism and everything, and how non-Blacks are complacent where this is concerned. But I'll give Demetria a chance to talk about how she feels.
Thank you for that. That was beautiful.
Yeah, because while you were talking, you were saying a lot of the things that were running through my head. You hit on the fact that they have benefited from all that has taken place, but yet remain silent. I have one friend who posted, and I use that loosely, that she kind of now understands Black Lives Matter and what it means. It's like, okay, the example she used was, if I have, 3 children and one is hurting and the other 2 come along and say, well, I have hurt too. It's like, yeah, but right now we need to help this one deal with their hurt. It's like, and I told her, I was like, wow, that's rather noble of you to feel like you now have an understanding that is not hitting the surface of what we're dealing with. You are looking at it from the perspective of, okay, yes, I need to, give attention to my Black friends. And I said, no, we don't need your validation. That is not what we need. What we need is for you all to recognize the reality of what it is that has taken place time and time again. I was like, if the shoe had been on the other foot and you had a Black man to kill a white officer and he had 3 accomplices, we wouldn't even be having this discussion, because everything would have shut down to find all 4, charge all 4, have a swift and just trial, and they would receive convictions that would last for generations. Because that, and I say that because at that point, when incarceration happens, 9 times out of 10, they will never set foot on free land again.
We would hope.
So in, huh?
I'm saying, yeah, we would hope. I agree. We hope.
Yeah, we would hope. But, and so while dealing with this particular headline, you know, people are trying to deflect and do all the things that you were saying as far as the, what about the Black on Black crime? And I know we'll deal with all that later, but my anger comes in, and I don't think the protests need to stop anytime soon, because we still have 3 accomplices that have yet to be arrested. In this particular case, here in Indianapolis, a young man was killed. And they haven't even so much as really, there's a press conference earlier today where the family is still yet requesting information on who the officers even were that were involved in the shooting that killed him.
Mm.
So this goes well beyond what our dear lighter, brighter loved ones and friends would probably ever understand. Because like you were saying, it's rooted. It is something that our, you know, because I'm sure you all have done just like I have. We've sat at the feet of our elders. So we've gotten the real reality of what's going on.
Yeah.
So I'm just, you know, that's just kind of my take on everything.
Okay. All right. So that's how you're feeling.
And can I say one more thing? I'm also tired of being afraid to speak out. One of your dear friends just posted something, Audra. She said, you know what? She said, staying quiet and complacent is the problem. Because I think a lot of times we're scared to rock the boat. But we have to stay focused. We cannot allow them to change the narrative, and we cannot buy into that attempt to change the narrative. It's not about Black on Black crime or white on white crime or anybody on anybody crime, you know, where that's concerned in terms of race. This is about police brutality against our men. And this is about systemic racism that is designed to keep us and our kings down.
Yeah.
This is the focus. This is the sole focus right now. And you would be hard pressed to get me to, honestly, I'm just being real with you, to decry anything that's happening, even in terms of the rioting and looting. I'm not scared. I'm not afraid to say that. Because you know what? We've got a generation now, these millennials, what is it, 1982 to 2000, they're tired in their little young lives. They're extremely tired. And they haven't even seen as much as the 3 of us has seen. Mm-hmm. So they are forced to be reckoned with. And, you know, until we get their attention, then, you know, what do we have? Yes, you know, we marched during the civil rights movement. You know, the Montgomery bus boycott was absolutely positively successful. You know, and of course, with all the years it took for us to boycott against Jim Crow laws and the establishment, you know, of the Civil Rights Act, it did take a while. And right now, even 30 years ago, even 40 years ago, it required us to move to the next step. Because, you know, once that was over, they became, I guess, immune to it. And I mean the non-Black community.
Yeah.
Honestly, even these peaceful protests, and that's subjective, the peaceful protest. Protest is a protest. Mm-hmm. The definition of protest is actually to go against or make your voice heard against the establishment. So the establishment is never going to be comfortable with a protest. That's not what it's designed for. That's the whole reason behind it, is to, you know, point out the inequities, you know, which we've always had in America. So don't tell me how I'm supposed to protest. You can't do that. You can't tell me it should be a peaceful protest. That's what Dr. King chose. And I honor that. And I know that God sent him just for that. But just like, you know, one of my friends sent me a post today, a Birmingham, Alabama pastor spoke so eloquently. And maybe you can share this, Annette, as an attachment on your show. But like him, I'm torn. There are two sides. I'm torn with the Martin Luther King and the Nelson Mandela on one side, and then I've got the Marcus Garvey and the Malcolm X on the other. Now, Malcolm said something which was always his mantra. He said, you know what? He said, I'm nonviolent to those who are nonviolent to me. He said, but I will be violent against those who are violent toward me. So he just defended himself. Now, we all know that Dr. King's platform was different. It was turn the other cheek. It was based on, Gandhiisms. And, and I thank God for that. But, some of us don't ascribe to that, meaning in our community anymore. I mean, it got us where it needed to get us, but it's going to take something different.
Okay, great. You ladies are fired up already. I see that, which is a good thing. So if you guys are just now joining us again, this is a sister chat. We're talking about how all the events have affected us psychologically, the events concerning the lives of our men, our kings being snuffed out, being taken away senselessly, from law enforcement. That's really, what our focus is on. And I'm glad you said that a few seconds ago, Gwen, because I want those that are viewing us and watching us on today to know that we are sitting down having this chat because sometimes we have been silent, or some maybe didn't know exactly how to express themselves, or when they did, they were, talked about or what have you. But, this is a no judgment zone here. We're going to talk today and just kind of get our feelings out. But then, of course, also, in Annette style, I want to see what kind of resolve, if any, that we can get to, whether it's individually or collectively, to help us, deal with this situation, because it's real. It is a real situation. Let me read some comments here and recognize some individuals that are here. Dr. Wallace said, time for change has arrived. She also says the social media and technology has removed the covering. We can no longer travel any place without the technological witnesses. And you're right, that is the biggest difference now, because it's not like all of this stuff just started happening. Who said it? What celebrity said it's just now being filmed? You all know what quote I'm talking about. Dr. Wiley also says silence is acceptable. Silence is acceptance. Excuse me, there's a difference in that. Silence is acceptance. Demetrius Hunt, I see you on. Thanks for watching. Also another comment here, African Americans arrived in America in chains. Given a gardening tool, Europeans arrived and given millions of acres of land. The history needs to be acknowledged. Gina says here, as mothers, sisters, aunts, etc., we carry the pain and fear of our Black men. We raise our sons differently than mothers of white sons. Why? Because we try to prepare them for days of Trayvon Martin, Mike Brown, Eric Garner, George Floyd, and others whom have died at the hands of white officers. May they rest in peace. I love that comment, Gina. Thank you so much for that. Elizabeth Madison, I think I did recognize you. Thank you for watching. Let me make sure there are no comments over here on the watch party as well. I see you, Vanessa Gill Dyson. We appreciate you. Vanessa, I said both of your names. We call you by. Thank you for watching. Anthony Knowles, I appreciate you. John Purnell, Lady Iris Reed is on. We thank each of you. Dominic, I see you on. Thanks for watching. Now, while we are here, LaShonda Lewis, Dr. Hill, thank you. While we are here talking and I'm asking them questions and we're sharing our thoughts, you please feel free to throw your thoughts and your comments into the comment section. I will take my time and acknowledge them and read them. If you have questions for us, I will read them as well. You just see us three here, but the conversation is to be had amongst all of us. So we want to encourage you all to make sure that you join in as well. Elder McGee, I see you on, and I know we have a spoken word from Elder McGee that we're going to play a little bit later that is very, very powerful for today's topic. Richard Young, I see you. Thanks for watching. Junior, J.R. Jordan, we appreciate you, my brother. Thanks for watching and supporting us on today. We're talking to the sisters. We're talking about how this is affecting us, psychologically, because it bothers us. Ladies, I was looking at, well, we've seen a lot of things, videos, we've seen postings, we've seen celebrities talking and not being afraid to express themselves. There was one post that I saw, and I believe was my good friend Sharinda Robinson, right before I came on the air. And you all may have seen this, but this touched me. She shared a post where this one mother was out with the protesters and she had up a sign. She had a sign that she held up. And the sign said, "All mothers were summoned when George Floyd called out for his mama." Ooh, I don't have children. And that touched me. And I said, she's right. That sign is so accurate. This man literally called for his mom. And many of us did not find out until later that his mom was already deceased. Of course, his family, knew. But we just found out, and it's like, what kind of, where does that place you? I went through a range of emotions right before we came on the air. And I don't know, because we kind of came on a little bit early, the ladies and I did, so we can get ourselves set up. I don't know, Dee or anybody recognized, I had tears in my eyes. And that was why, because it just hit me. He called for his mom. And rightfully so, because, sometimes you get into situations, our parents are deceased. My sisters and our parents are deceased now. And sometimes I'm my mama, daddy, or something like that, even though they're gone, but it's like you still call on them. You still, you have that connection. Reading that, ladies, what do you think about that? All mothers were summoned. What are your thoughts on that? Because it again, it affects you psychologically. It really does. I don't know who wants to go first. Dee, Gwen, whoever.
You know what? It's truth. All mothers were summoned. And it goes back to something I said at the opening. God made us nurturers. So, even though, Dee and Annette, you may not be mothers naturally, that nurturing instinct is still there. And even me as a mother, as a Black mother, I don't have a son, I have a daughter, but I am actually, my father, my brother who I lost, my husband, my cousins, it actually hurts. I knew that his mother wasn't here. I had heard that even before I heard he cried out for his mother. That hurt like you would never know. And so, yes, we were summoned. We could not be there to rescue him in that way. But we are here to stand for righting a wrong. God allowed this to happen and for us to go through this. I believe in my heart of hearts for a reason. There's a day of reckoning that's coming to America, to non-Black America. Those that refuse to acknowledge, again, this systemic racism. Something's coming and we have to be prepared for it. And then, you couple that, and Annette, you mentioned this earlier, you couple everything that we've gone through the centuries, even though we weren't here the last 400 years, but then you couple that with this pandemic and how, they're saying we're disproportionately, based on percentages, affected our community. And, you mentioned this, Demetria, or Annette, when you read about we came here and changed, they gave us tools, but they gave white Americans acres of land. Same thing now, with this, with the pandemic, the response was to give white corporate America 4 billion.
Hmm.
$4 billion. But then you give, Black America, and I'm speaking because that's what we're talking about, $1,200. I mean, it is absolutely positively incredible. And then you see, honestly, mostly non-Blacks, they were protesting weeks ago, state capitals, Michigan, Minnesota, with their rifles, their AK-47s. And, I'm not going to call all of them white supremacists, but we know there were some that were getting on these Democratic governors about opening up the state. They wanted to get back to work. The irony is they weren't going back to work. We were, because we're the frontline people, the service people that keep them afloat. We're the ones who pad their pockets. So they weren't going back to work, but they were okay with sacrificing, Black America, who was disproportionately affected by this pandemic. So you take that, and then now you have an idiot cop, a rogue cop. No, I'm not even gonna say rogue cop, because there are a lot of them that are no good. I don't care. That one bad apple crap, and that's exactly what I mean, that's out the window. There's no one bad apple crap, because they are deeply entrenched. Trust that. The KKK, white supremacists, they get those jobs on purpose so that they can carry out this initiative. And if you think that they are not, then you are sadly mistaken. You are fooled. And I got some land on the moon to sell you. So, people are tired. You have these things that, back to back. So it's almost like, well, when does it end? So then what you're saying to me, or you're saying to us, is we have to take matters into our own hands. And then you got your idiot president who, are sicking cops on peaceful protesters just for a photo op. And I would, I believe honestly that was a hymnal, because I believe that the God I serve would have struck him down if he had held a real Bible. I mean, so you think of all of this mess and this farceness, even the things that he said, the things that he tweeted about, the things that he tweeted about with the Charlottesville, racists. Oh, they're good people. And then even the people in Michigan and Minnesota, well, the governors, they need to listen to them and sit down and negotiate. But you're not hearing one word decrying the systemic racism or the death of George Floyd and countless others who are actually behind me on my screen. And this is not even it. These are the ones we know about publicly. How about the hundreds of thousands that we don't know about?
Okay. Well, you see, my sister's very passionate, because I asked her about that sign and she took that and went somewhere else, but that's okay. This is good. Dee, your thoughts on the sign that I was referring to?
It made me mad.
Okay.
When this man called out for his mother, I didn't get sad. I got angry. I got angry for several reasons. One, thank God for the young lady that did hold her stance and record, because it gave us the evidence that was needed to prove what actually happened to Mr. Floyd. But you had others just standing around. And I'm of the mindset, don't stand around, stampede. When you see something like that happening, I don't care if you got to find something to, and I actually posted about it. And I was like, even if it means distraction by destruction, when you see someone that is unjustly being manhandled, because I personally, being who I am, coming from the family that I came from, the family of activism, the family of not just standing around, I would have gotten jacked up to see that man on him. Something would have had to give. Because I'm the type of person, I just step up. I deal with the consequences later. That's just who I am as an individual. But I got really, really mad because the code is gone. Just like it is paramount for us to have our men take care of us and protect us, it's our job to protect them. And there were too many people out there. And for them to even push back the clerk from the store to tell him to get back when he was telling him to get off of him because he couldn't breathe. As someone who deals with respiratory issues, just because you're able to verbalize does not mean you are able to bring in air. If you are in the midst of having respiratory issues, it takes everything within you to get those 2 or 3 words out. Yeah. So to have someone, and I said this before the independent autopsy came out, I was like, it wasn't just the pressure on the neck that killed him, it was the pressure on his back that helped to kill him, because his lungs were not able to pull in the oxygen and expand to give him the breath that he needed. Now, from some of the things that Gwen said earlier about MLK and Malcolm, if people were to really pay attention, by the end of both of their lives, their stances had begun to shift. Martin's speeches became a little bit more revolutionary. They were still, in Martin-esque style, but he started to make the statements that, I'm telling everyone that these young people need to be, we need to be nonviolent. But here it is, as a country during that particular era, our country was helping other countries gain their independence by war. Are we not worth that? Some of our men were over there fighting for those other countries, but then they're being mistreated on the ships, on the bases, the military bases. They come home, they're treated like trash, like they don't even matter. But their lives were put on the front line for another country.
Yeah, you're right, Demetria. You're absolutely right.
So when people come at me with that, oh, well, it wasn't me, or let me, I have to be real careful because I respect Annette's platform enough not to say some of the words that really want to come out of my mouth. But being from Mississippi, some of those people hanging from trees were, in some of those pictures, were my family. So I get pissed when I see and hear excuses. I don't, I would, and my classmates, those that may join later, or be on now, I don't know, but they will tell you, even in high school and junior high school, when these topics will come up. I had one instructor, he was really good at making radical statements for engagement. And one time he made the statement, and he would say these things on purpose to make us as a class open up with dialogue. And I think I've told Annette about it in the past. He made the statement that Abe Lincoln did more for the Black man than MLK. But he said that in order to make us think about what happened with both men. And at that moment, I went into straight D mode, Meacher mode at the time, because D wasn't around at the time. Meacher was is really raw and uncut. And in class, and I said, that's a haka crop. And I'm editing what I said, because if Abe gave a happy ham sandwich about us, he wouldn't have had slaves himself. And as far as Martin goes, you know, and what happened with him and what happened with Malcolm, the reality is they were threats to our government. That's why they were silenced.
Yeah.
What's happening right now, this is what America was afraid of, because of and see, you have to sometimes meet people, and I put up a post, sometimes you have to meet people where they are to help them understand what it is you're saying. Kaepernick tried to do things peacefully to help them understand that people were getting tired and what was going on was wrong. He tried it. He tried to help them understand. Look, you all don't realize what's really happening with all of this stuff that's going on. So since you all don't understand, we, as those of us who are revolutionized and acting out now, are letting them see and letting them know, okay, so you only understand actions like 1921 in Tulsa. So let me help you understand what it means to have your whole world turned upside down. So when you start talking about the looting and the riot, I could give a happy ham sandwich about that stuff with the corporations. The only part of that that bothers me are the people whose livelihoods, those of us who are not as well off financially, that depend on those places to provide for their households. That's the only aspect that I regret when these people are hitting these corporations.
Yeah,
Right.
I get it, because I mean, we haven't even gotten into talking about the looting as opposed to the protesting here. But let me.
Can I say something before you go on?
Hang on, I need to put a pin in that for a second. I just want to recognize, because we did ask individuals to throw in their comments, and I don't want them to be disregarded. So let's see. A comment here: we are experiencing disparities because of the way we were embraced upon arrival in America, and hundreds of years, no change. Janine Sanders, I see you on. Karen Eugene is on. Dr. Hill says, absolutely, I agree with you ladies. I dealt with this 40 years ago with my sons and now my grandsons. We should absolutely not be silent. But who suffers the consequences of this violence? Okay, so now we're going into that. Some of us fought and spent years to get a Walmart and grocery store in our communities. Now where will we shop? Okay, so and I'm gonna come back to that comment, Dr. Hill, and I appreciate that, because I also want to talk about the, I mean, we can kind of get into that, but you know, basically what she's saying, basically you've teared the end of what you were saying, Dee, you know, about the rioting, it affecting our communities and our areas, and that's what I have a problem with as well. Jamone Gaston, I see you on. Junior says, Floyd being murdered by those cops was the match that lit the power keg of dynamite known as racism that's been brewing since the slavery and civil rights movement. 45 started fanning those flames when he was running for president, and after he got elected, he gave all those closet racists the courage, closet racists, the courage to be bold. They normally try to hide it, but they've been bold since he's been in office. And I give you like 1,000 hearts for that. I agree with that. Pastor Rick, we see you on. Auntie Pat, thanks for watching. Carla Vaughn is on. Unique Myron, Cornelius. Dr. Hill says, yes, I went to school in Mississippi and I was there when we couldn't vote. Celeste Jackson, we see you on. Monte Atkins, we appreciate you. Thank you all so much. Continue to throw in your comments. We're addressing this on today. If you're just not joining us, this is a sister chat, and we're talking about how all of this has psychologically affected us, dealing with our Black men being taken away from us. They've been killed senselessly. Their lives are, it's as if their lives don't have any value. And I know, and I'm moving ahead of myself, but I want to throw this in there too, that when we kind of get to a section of possible resolve, I even want to talk about maybe, you know, ways that we can help. You know, I know we see the protest and the peaceful protest, and we see the looting, we see this, that, and the other, but I want us to get in and doing something. Yes, we need to vote. We need to make sure we vote on all aspects, not just for the presidency. You know, we need to make sure we vote in our judges in, and those, you know, who are making these laws and setting them forth. But I also want to see about a law, and I'm throwing this in here because my thoughts of, you know, this man calling his mom, you know, when you think back on that person that was filming, all I heard was a female voice, and she sounded like she was Black. All I heard was a female voice that was filming. And I can only imagine what this is doing to her psychologically, to be there in the thick of this latest, you know, situation. Yes, we can say God forbid it be anybody else, but she was there and it affected her. But I would love to see a law, because I have no idea how I would have reacted when I was there. I probably would have ran towards the police. I don't know, saying stop or something, but it's almost like your hands were tied and handcuffed, and it's like you were there and you couldn't do anything for this man. No, you didn't know him, but to see this done to this human being, you know, what was that doing, you know, for you? I would love to see a law where, you know, the bystanders or those that are filming can run and intercede and do something. I don't know. I'm just thinking off the top of my head, you know, where there will be no repercussions on them, you know, because they were trying to tell them, you know, man, let him breathe or do something or whatever. And maybe more than verbally saying, you know, cops get off of him, something else, you know, some kind of law or something. I'm just, like I said, I'm just throwing that out there. When you had a point, I hope you didn't miss it, or it didn't.
No, I wrote it down.
Okay, good. What was your point?
I added a couple more things. I initially had two things. The first thing is, don't forget about the comments on the watch party.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
So one of the three of the points I wanted to make with respect to Demetria's comments, which, you know, you verbally spoke, and I thought it was absolutely beautiful, especially your perspective as having been born in Mississippi. But according to history, Abraham Lincoln didn't own slaves. So I just want to throw that out there. And then I hear what you're saying too about Dr. King, and then I thought about it, I said, well, maybe in my comments about Dr. King earlier and, you know, his peaceful protests and nonviolent protests, that I sent the wrong message. Let me tell you something. He ranks right up there. You will never, ever get me to say anything bad, derogatory, or whatever about Dr. King. I'm sorry, because he was God sent and he served his purpose here. Now, you made a comment about, well, yeah, you know, he and Malcolm kind of changed toward the end of their lives. I guess some people would see it that way if you haven't dug a little bit deeper. One thing about me, I am a militant person, especially where my people are concerned. I got it honestly. I got it from my dad. So, you know, some things I do research and I dig until I can't dig anymore. Martin Luther King Jr. was militant, always. From the day he stepped into the forefront during the Montgomery bus boycott. I believe he was 26 years old. Always militant. It was just a choice he made in terms of how he would protest. We can't get those two mixed up. So I don't think Martin ever changed. He was always militant. He always spoke out, but he spoke out eloquently about the injustices, the Jim Crow laws, you know, what we've always faced. He's always done that. I mean, and the sad part about it is everything he ever recorded, whether it was for the news media or in his books or, you know, what have you, is still relevant today. And we have to ask ourselves, why?
Why?
Because we haven't overcome. So don't get me wrong. I mean, Martin was always militant. And like I said about Malcolm, it was just a choice in how they chose to deal with and to protest. Malcolm, always brilliant. You know, honestly, even before he went to jail. I mean, even some of the crimes, I hate to say it, even some of the crimes he committed, which is why he served his time, the man was smart. And if you dig back a little deeper, he was ahead of his class, only Black in his class. So, you know, when we say that, and yes, I think what happened to Malcolm was he came to the unfortunate realization, which we know is real, of the division within our own community. That's another show. I'm not even going to touch on that. And I think he was, you know, I believe he was brought into the light where there were people of non-color, non-Black people that could truly help us, because he didn't believe that in the beginning. So I think that was his awakening after, you know, taking his Hajj, his pilgrimage. You know, he came to that realization, but to me, he was still the same. And, you know, I don't care. It hurt some people. It hurt a whole lot of white people, you know, what he talked about. But guess what? Everything he said was truth. They just didn't want to realize it. And then some of us as Black people, we were kind of ashamed because, you know what, we didn't want to rock the boat. Malcolm spoke truth. And so did Martin. So, you know, when I say that, I just didn't want, you know, anybody to get that mixed up, is that, you know, I was saying that, you know, Martin was passive because he was always militant. You know, just like Bernice King said the other day, you know, don't use what my father said about nonviolent protest. Don't quote him on that. And then you don't speak about what he said about these injustices. That's just a venue he chose that God gave him in terms of how to protest. It had nothing to do with, you know, him being soft, you know, on racism, on systemic racism, because he called it out. He called it out for what it was.
Right.
So I just want to make sure, you know, make that clear. And then God bless the young lady's heart who actually filmed it. And I hear you, Demetria. I question whether or not I would have been that one to put down the camera and go jump on the police officers. As militant as I am, I may not have been that. I commend her and I pray for her and I ask God to give her strength.
Yes.
Because guess what? If she had chosen to go and help him, we would never have known what happened to him. So I thank God that she continued to videotape.
Yeah.
We needed that. The world needed to see that. And then, you know, of course, we already had the young man who was trying to, you know, tell them, stop, get off of him or whatever. But there was only so much he could do as a mirror of the man who was laying on the ground.
Yes.
He was in the same boat, you all.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I would be slow to condemn, you know, those that did not choose to jump in, because honestly, we don't know what their mindset was. You know, our upbringing and where we grow up has a lot to do with how we react to things. And I believe God allows things to happen just as they happen. So I still believe all of this was within the will. But go ahead.
Yeah. Now, I let me address that real quick. I'm not sure if you were saying in reference to what I said. I was in no way condemning anyone for not jumping in. I just want to see if we can try and make a law. So this.
Oh, no, not what you said. I'm talking about what Demetria said. No, I hear it. But then I hear both of you all. You both were correct. I'm not condemning anybody, but I'm just saying, you know, let's open up our understanding to where, I mean, you know, maybe she wasn't at that point. And maybe the other guy wasn't at that point because of what he feared, you know, what would happen. So they saw a man being arrested by one cop, but being killed by 4. So that means, you know, other people, they came on the scene later. So you just don't know what that atmosphere was like, you know, so I just have nothing but compassion and I pray for all of them. Exactly.
And which is what we're saying. We're talking about, you know, how it affected her psychologically, because I don't know what she's dealing with now. I haven't seen where they've you know, mentioned this woman's name in the news or anything like that. I can almost assure you that it's affecting her. I know that it is. You know, she wouldn't be human if it wasn't, you know, so we, you know, but and of course, okay, so if we had a law, you know, that would allow individuals to go ahead and be able to jump in and to help, you know, to save someone, you know, from being killed or what have you, then there would not have been any hesitation. You would not have a hesitation. You know what I'm saying? Being as militant as you are, you would not have had a hesitation if something had been set in place. Dee, you want to say something real quick? I'm sorry. I think I saw your hand.
Yeah, I wanted to say that the young lady is only 17.
Okay.
And she is a young African-American young lady. And I don't fault her at all for not stepping in, because as a young lady. She did what her generation knows to do, document it.
Yeah.
Keep the film rolling. And I agree with you, Gwen, we don't know the atmosphere, and I need to recant my statement because, you know, like you said, we don't know how many people were there initially to actually, you know, and when you put it like that, you're right, because I'm very militant, and I am one of those jump out there kind of people. So everybody's not like me. But see, I grew up being that way with my father when situations would arise. So that's why, you know, because even with me and my sister Kenyatta, that's actually how we met, because I jumped into some mess with her, you know, where somebody was attacking her. She was innocent, but she was being attacked by this guy verbally, nonetheless, not physically, let me clarify, verbally. And I just basically was like, what you won't do in my presence. So that's just me as an individual. And as far as my statement about the slaves with Abe Lincoln, you're right. He personally did not own them, but there were slaves that were responsible for maintaining the White House. So let me make that clarification. So that was kind of what I was saying in terms of, and I appreciate you making that distinction because it does definitely need to be made.
Okay. All right. I got two militant women on here. If you guys are just now joining me, this is Annette Harris, Mind, Body, and Soul with Annette. We are having a sister chat. We are talking about how the most recent events, the demise of Mr. Floyd, and then some of our other brothers, our other fathers, our other uncles and cousins, how their lives have been snuffed out, how it's affecting us as sisters psychologically. Because it is taking a toll on us. And I do thank the rest of you that have joined us, those that I have not called out. Lisa says, right, his face said enough to let everyone know not to interfere. She's talking about one of the cops. Buddy Gill, I see you on. Thank you, my buddy, for watching. Gina Thurston, we appreciate you. I do want to throw this question out before I get into my next comment. Tanya Mingo, I see you as well. You mothers that are on here, you aunts that are on here, you daughters, you sisters that are on here, throw your comments and your questions into the live feed as we're talking today. Talk to me about how this has affected you psychologically, you directly. We're having a sit down, we're having a roundtable discussion on today. So because sometimes you just need to get it off your chest. Some of us have just been dealing with this silently. Some of us have been looking at the news on a continual basis. And we're like, oh my God, some of us are in tears. I've seen some of my friends say sometimes they just go in their room, they just cry their eyeballs out, you know, because it's like almost like you can't do anything, or what can you do? You know, or have I done enough? You know, and it's bothering you. So we're talking about this on today on Mind, Body, and Soul. And I think it's a perfect topic, you know, because of what we are experiencing and dealing with. Let me say this. I see the note about the other watch party. Maybe whoever can see those comments can read them for me, because I don't see them. But I will say this before you read the watch party comments. I saw a video, and this was something that happened. Let me get my dates together. This happened June 11, 2019. I watched a video of a young Black woman. She had her camera out. She was filming. There were about a good 8 to 10 cops who had their rifles out, their guns out. It was like on a corner, almost like the same kind of, you know, situation with George Floyd. And there was one young Black man who was on his knees, and he was up, his hands were up behind his head, and she was screaming. She was hysterical. Why do you have to have your guns on him? Of course, she was cussing or whatever. She said, why do you have those big old guns on him? He's not doing anything. Why? She kept asking why. And they I think it was maybe like 2 or 3 female cops, and the rest were male. And they had their guns drawn. And she's like, what is all of this about? What's going on? but she had her camera. She had it going. And then when the young man realized, okay, she's trying to help me, he said, and I'm not armed. I'm not armed. He was yelling that out. And he was like, thank you for filming. Thank you for filming. He was like, keep it going or something like that. And so she was yelling at the cops and trying to tell them to get off of him. And so he was trying to turn around to the cops and say, I don't have anything on me. What is going on? And then she was like, no, man, turn around, turn back around. It's okay. And you know what she started yelling out? She said, don't do anything. Be still, please. They killed my boyfriend about 4 years ago. They killed him. Please, please, please don't do anything. And she's pleading with the cops. She's pleading with the young man to be still. And I said, oh my God. And then finally she got the attention of one of the cops. And she said, please, my name is such and such. She gave her name on the video. She said, and my boyfriend was killed. Sheriff's police killed him. And she said, and so I know how this is. I know how this goes. And that young lady continued to plead with the cops. And she asked them, because the cops were trying to tell him to get up and walk to where they were. She said, no, don't you move. That's what the young lady said. And she said to the police, can't you just go up and get him? He has nothing on him. Just go up and get him. They listened to her. Wait, hold on a second. They listened to her and they literally went up and got him. They put him in handcuffs. And then one officer came over to her and he said, ma'am, why are you yelling so? What's wrong? She said, I'm sorry, but my boyfriend was killed. A sheriff's police killed him. And this was just deja vu all over again for me. And I don't know what eventually happened to the young man. They took him in handcuffs or whatever, but they didn't kill him. And it was something minor. It was something minor. And I can't remember what the exact issue was. And so then, I know what it was. The police officer said, well, they said he had a gun. That's why we drew our guns. She was like, but there's nothing on him. And so he asked her, who is this young man to you? She said, I don't even know him. So that's what I'm talking about in terms of what can we do, doing what we can. Is there something we can do? I don't know. I'm sorry. I told that whole story, but that video, it really did something to me. It really did.
She was persistent, and it made the difference.
It did.
It made the difference. It's kind of like a video of the Sudanese gentleman that I posted on my page, where the cops just walked up to him and started asking him a bunch of questions. And he was like, look, you got the wrong guy. And his friends that were there with him were like, you've got the wrong person. That is not who I am. Whatever the name was, that is not who I am. And the cops, a second one popped, came through, a third one, which was a supervisor, came through. And instead of the supervisor coming in while the guy was trying to talk to him, I'm like, look, this is not who I am. And I've been trying to tell them I'm not that person. And he was like, just get my wallet, all of this dialogue back and forth. And he was like, just take my wallet out of my back pocket. And when they finally did, and they realized they had the wrong person, then it became, well, you should have complied. You should, if the man is sitting there minding his own business and you roll up on him and you sit up here and you was like, what, talking about, well, I need you to stand up. It's like, for what? I've been here. I am not the person you're looking for. Now, had his friends not been there, had the cameras not been rolling, had his friends not stepped up, we could have had yet another incident on our hands. But as far as your original question, Annette, as far as the show is concerned, how is this affecting us? For me personally, I'm terrified. I'm angry, and I'm beyond being sad. I'm mad. because my husband is an essential worker. Here in Indianapolis, we have a curfew. He works the second shift. When he goes to work, all is well. But when he gets off work, we're at least 2 to 3 hours or so into the curfew. He doesn't get home till after midnight every night or they're roundabout. So he's driving home. What if he, and I always pray over him before he leaves, going to work, and when he calls me to say, babe, I'm on my way home. That was even before all of this started. But now there's a different level of anxiety that accompanies my prayer. God, don't let him encounter a cop that's feeling himself just because. God, please don't let him encounter a police officer that just left a tenuous situation and needs to act out or wants to act out just because he's frustrated and aggravated with someone that he may have encountered prior to seeing my husband driving home. God, please cover that vehicle from the front bumper to the back. God, not just him, but the other Black men that are on their way home. God, not just, and so I find myself adding layers to my prayers, because just like I care about my husband, who happens to be a brother, who happens to be a son, who happens to be an uncle, who happens to be a cousin and a nephew. There are so many other G Trips out there. That's my nickname for him. There's so many other G Trips that are out there for these other families. Even the ones that have been, acting out in a more radical, manner. You have generations that do things differently. The younger generation, you have those who are, because of, like Gwen said, everybody came up differently. So for someone whose family has been struggling and may be going to school with holes in their tennis shoes or where their gym shoes are talking, when they see that busted window, I'm able to get me a pair of shoes. Now, I may just see it as a looter, but there's like, man, I can get some shoes that don't hurt my feet. For that mother or that father that may be going up in there. Not everyone is going just to be destructive. Some people are going in because there are things that they feel that they can get that they need for their families. Because people have not been able to work since this COVID-19 shut everything down. So there are different levels of people. There are people who are definitely opportunists, as well as the ones that are saying, okay, this is my opportunity to get those things that I may not be able to afford otherwise for my family. Then you have those who are the ones inciting all of this stuff, to get the things going. Like the video with the young Black man saying, look, I was just down here 3 weeks ago. This pile of bricks wasn't here in front of this particular building down in, I think it was Dallas. These bricks weren't here. What do you think is a setup? Okay. And with all of these different lives, with the, our lighter, brighter humans causing the destruction, but the Black Lives Matter movement, we're getting the blame.
Yeah.
Then you have those, our elders who have gone through a lot of this stuff back in the 60s, back in the 50s, those who were like my father, and others who were the ones that were, very hands-on and trying to get the different NAACP chapters off the ground so that we would be able to have somewhere to go. And people fail to realize the NAACP was not just for, even though the name says colored people, it helped all people. But it was formed to basically help, people in general, but so that we would have an organization, a centralized place to go when crazy crap like this jumped off.
Right. Okay. Look, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna have Gwen to read those comments that were on the watch party, because for some reason I can't see them. So if you
Okay. Okay, sounds good. Well, we've got John Purnell, our little brother. This was a little bit earlier. He said, always remember, nonviolent or peaceful doesn't have to be weak or pacified. It can still be disruptive and shocking without destroying our own stores' property. Civil unrest is very much needed. So that's a different perspective, which is absolutely positively wonderful. And Richard responded to a comment earlier saying it's their culture. I think that was when I was, talking about the systemic racism and things like that. And John Purnell said, yes, that's the other America. And that's also actually a work by Dr. King. And I encourage you guys to read that. The Other America, a letter from Birmingham jail, why we can't wait. I mean, it's just absolutely positively incredible. And John was agreeing with you in terms of laws, Annette, because these things aren't working. There has to be laws, but he also said that we are a threat, or this is a threat to the government power system. Somebody mentioned a little bit earlier saying that, no, this system is not broken. This system is doing exactly what it was designed to do, which is why we have to change it.
Yeah.
Richard Young said, yeah, taking a knee was a whole lot quieter, but obviously they didn't listen. Richard also said community redevelopment and training alliance is the answer to our problem. We need to get connected. And there are a whole lot of actual services, I'm not going to say movements, but alliances that, we can join. And Annette, if you don't mind, toward the end of the show, I'd like to share some things with you that we can follow, in terms of people from a spiritual aspect. And then, of course, naturally speaking, mostly, because we got to live in this world.
Are there links for that? Because maybe you can start typing them in and then we can refer to them later.
Yeah, I can come up with some links. And John said in response to you, Annette, also, the law should always automatically be first-degree murder for officers, both on and off duty. I totally agree.
Yeah.
Because you know what, it's absolutely crazy. But then John said he saw the video you were talking about earlier, with the young lady kind of jumping in, and he said, they said it's the Amy Cooper stuff. He said the video was awesome, that somebody was an FBI agent. Are you aware of that?
I don't know.
Maybe he's talking about that particular one. They were trying to arrest an FBI agent, but they shut up quick when they saw his badge, because I believe he was undercover.
Oh, that's the one that Dimitri was talking about.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, sorry.
Right.
So my reference was wrong. Yeah.
That's exactly what it was. He was an agent or something, and they had egg in their face,
Yeah, but that's how they are. That's what they're designed to do. That's, just like you were explaining about pulling out the guns just because somebody said he had a gun, but
right.
Yet he's saying, I'm not armed, come and get me. It's that whole mentality. That's why all of that has to change. Not only, regular laws, but laws where policing is concerned. See, this is why the white supremacists and the KKK, that's why they're joining the force, because this is a way that they can enable themselves and enact their hate, because there are so many, policies and laws that, give these police officers free reign. There's no way that they should be able to do that. I found out today that almost every state in the union does not condemn chokehold. And then how they get off, like with Freddie Gray and all of the other people, they always say, well, you know what, I fear for my life. So that's going to have to change. First of all, you know what, we need to clean house. There needs to be a sweeping firing of everybody. And then we've got to tackle the unions. We must tackle the unions because almost in every single solitary case, they uphold the systemic racism. So that's got to change. And because they've got a stronghold. That's why it is so hard to prove. And this is why, Minnesota State's Attorney Keith Ellison is talking about, how they, the county state's attorney, Hennepin County State's Attorney, even though I think he's a racist, only came up with third-degree murder charges because they know that there's a burden of proof that has to be had.
Right.
And if they can't do that, then they go free. They get acquitted. This is why these laws have to change.
Yeah.
And this is one reason why we have to vote too, because we got the Hennepin County, state's attorney who was actually mad. He got up and held the press conference and was mad, talking about, well, you guys have to understand, this is the quickest we've ever arrested anybody. Well, that's got to change.
Yeah.
And then when the media asked him a question, he was asking him questions. Okay, well, what about the other four? Other three? He goes, he got mad. He literally turned red, said one statement, and he walked off. These are the people we have to get out of power. God bless Iowa in their Republican primary. And I'm not saying that the person that's going to replace him is going to be any better, but that's why come November, we need to put somebody else in there. But what was his name? Steve King. Got to get the heck out of Dodge. Racist. I mean, and that's what we have to do. We've got to get out there and we have to get rid of these people.
All right. Make our voices heard and what we're saying known. Dee, real quick, and then I need to hop over here to Facebook because there's some other comments here.
Hit Facebook and then, because I'll remember what it is I need to say.
Okay. All right. Celeste, and I appreciate you guys, and you're jumping in here with your comments and your questions. I did ask you to tell us how you were feeling on today, and so I appreciate you. Celeste says, this is all so heavy. There is so much change necessary. Protesting is necessary. I cannot condone looting under any circumstance. And she's a business owner. I can totally understand why you're saying that. Rioting may have been necessary to bring further attention to the situation. We need to vote. We need police reform. We need economic equality and updated guidelines for institutions in charge of finance for minority communities. I don't have all the answers. I do know that destroying Black and minority-owned small businesses will not help the situation or bring us closer to change. I agree. I agree with that whole statement. I thank you for that. Gina says, I'm crying right now. I have experienced injustice with my sons from teenage on up. So we feel it deep. Yeah. Dr. Wilder says we must keep eyes wide open, cell phones on, record, silent no more. Jeannie Palmer, I see you. Thanks for watching. Janice Gaston, our cousin, is on. Lisa also says exactly they're getting things that they need. Alexandria Davis, thank you for watching. Lanice, we appreciate you. Pastor Kenneth Lockhart is on. Karen says that video was like, wow. They stopped that with a quickness. Maybe she could be referring to either of our videos that we talked about, mine or yours. She also says exactly, they don't condemn chokeholds. The unions help them get off. Denise Molly, we see you on. Thanks for watching. And Lisa also says we got to stop being afraid to stand up and speak our truth. And this is what we're discussing on today. And I totally agree with that. We have to, and it almost sounds like we're kind of, we've segued ourselves, young ladies, into the resolve portion, or what can we do to try and change this ugly narrative. Another comment from Lisa, and then I'm gonna give it to you real quick, Dee. But in Chicago, how many Black-owned businesses are there in the community? Asians and Arabs are in our neighborhoods. They own everything. That's definitely. Now, actually, the young lady Celeste that I just read that long comment from, she has about 4 or 5 Black-owned businesses herself. So I don't know what the numbers are, Lisa, but they are definitely, they're there, and they have definitely been affected. And, sometimes you don't really realize it until maybe you see like some kind of a news report or something like that, that's in front of these different shops or whatever. I was just telling Demetria the other day about a couple who went down to their establishment, their business, when they saw on their cameras that their place was being looted. They went down and they were trying to help clean up. She was inside the store because the cameras were still on. She was inside the store, the wife was trying to clean up, and all of a sudden she looked out the door and her husband was on the ground unconscious with a mob around him. So they had come to attack the business owners too. And she's screaming and crying and trying to get her husband to wake up. He wouldn't wake up. I don't know what his status is now, but they had to take him to the hospital. So it, stuff like that, no, I don't agree with all that. I don't at all. I think that, and we know that there are other underlying groups that, create all this looting and everything too, that we're not ignorant of that. But then those who are, are following these groups or doing it on their own, don't do it to your own. Don't do it to your own people. Just don't do it. I feel bad. My sister-in-law, elderly lady, all the stores in her neighborhood are ruined. They have been burned down. They have been looted, and she does not have a place to go and shop now. She doesn't drive. So, you know what I'm saying? You think about all of that, that's what I have an issue with, a huge issue. Okay. So, D, you said you weren't going to forget. What was your comment?
All I was going to say is, based on a lot of what we're talking about, we're talking about how a lot of this stuff has happened. If we would pay attention when a situation arises and it does not involve a police officer as it relates to him or her being the shooter, things tend to be resolved a lot quicker as it relates to making arrests, as it relates to a lot of the other things that take place. But the standard rule of thumb, when an officer, and this is just something that I have observed and kind of spoken with, officers from different states, the rule of thumb a lot of times is when there's an officer related shooting, the delay is they generally don't talk to the officer until at least 48 hours after. And if we look at how they're always doing the suspensions or the desk duties or the administrative leaves, instead of putting them under the same, handling them with the same laws that are supposed to apply to us all, arrest now and let your defense get you off, or let the prosecution prove its case. It allows them to kind of, quote unquote, get their business in order. Because there was a meme going around talking about the one gentleman that was standing in front of the human. I had to catch myself because I almost said something that was partially responsible for cutting off Mr. Floyd's air supply, saying that he's married to that other gentleman's sister. But then it was discovered that they are, quote unquote, now going through a divorce. That is probably a ploy to protect their assets, because there's nothing to say that they can't remarry after the divorce, or because I don't know the circumstances surrounding the divorce. But my issue is, where in the name of Sam Walton are the other three?
Who's Sam Walton? No, I'm just kidding. No, I get it. I hear what you're saying.
As far as the looting statement, I understand Celeste's point, but she missed the very beginning where me, and Gwen were kind of talking about the corporations versus the smaller businesses. I could give a happy, with the exception of, like I said, the people that depend on those locations for their livelihood, especially some of our seniors that are greeters or whatever the case may be, because they're supplementing their income, or some of these other families who that is their income. With the exception of those, I could give a happy ham sandwich about a Target. All that crap is insured. They're going to get their money back. They're going to if they don't decide to go back into that location or what have you, it will be unfortunate. But as far as their losses, they're not going to have any. The smaller businesses, I'm in agreement with her especially our Black businesses. And I want to give a personal shout out to my cousin, Chris Hodges, because when there was looting going on, Chris stood in front of, you all may know where it is, Ramus. It's a restaurant, I think it is, Black-owned business. but he went out there and they were destroying the McDonald's. They were hitting the Foot Lockers or whatever shoe place. And he went and stood just himself in front of this Black-owned business and said, not this one. And then when some other brothers kind of walked by and was like, well, man, what are you doing? And he explained what he was doing. Before long, there was a group of our Black men standing in front of this one Black business saying, no, these corporations, whatever you do, that's what you do. But the Black-owned businesses, they made it a point in their area to step up and say, not this one. This belongs to us. We're not going to destroy ours. So I'm going to throw out there, it just like it only takes one brick to get the looting started, it takes one person to step up and say, look, this one belongs to us. We're not going to tear up ours.
Right. Yeah. That's good stuff. Good stuff.
And I want to ask you a question, Annette.
Sure.
The video that you saw, the story you were talking about, I'm sorry about the movement of my camera, everybody. With the the couple, was he Black, the husband?
You talking which video you're talking about? The last one
that you were telling me, that you were telling us about, where the wife was inside cleaning and the husband was
No, she's Black. It was an interracial couple. She's Black, but he's Hispanic.
So I want to ask, is this in Metro Chicago?
Yeah.
So I heard about all the things that were going on yesterday with Blacks being jumped and mobbed and stabbed and all the different things in certain areas, Hispanically based areas in the city. So and this is just my brain, very analytical. So I'm wondering if this is part of, because prior to that, you weren't really having any issues. I'm wondering if that is partial retaliation.
I don't know. Actually, I think this was I think it may have been downtown. It may have been downtown. I don't know, but who knows? Who knows? I don't know what their mentality was. Right.
But I was just, but when you told me the story, I was like, I couldn't remember if you had, and then like I said, with everything that was triggered yesterday with Blacks going through certain areas in the metro area, that's what made me ask the question.
Okay. Gwen, were there any other comments on the watch party?
Let me go back. Hang on one second.
As she's getting that, Gina says Uncle Remus is her best friend's restaurant. So that's another Black-owned
awesome
business. Let's see. John, I see you hop back on. Margie Tate. Lisa also says they are attacking Blacks for sure, which is sad because we're all in this together. We're hated almost equally. If you don't have any comments there, what I want to do is hop and actually play our spoken word for today. Kind of give us a little commercial, if you will.
Okay. Why don't you, I'm sorry, I was just posting some information, the information I asked if I could speak about a little bit later. So I just wanted to make sure that I did that. But there are, let's see, there are a few. John Purnell says, we need to charge the Minneapolis medical examiner with conspiracy after the fact. I totally agree, because that medical examiner initially said that George Floyd's death was probably caused by, I believe he said intoxication, heart disease, and I think it was one other thing. Yeah. When we know that he was asphyxiated, that it was homicide. Richard said we need our own banks too. Actually, we do have our own banks, but we probably need more. Margie Tate says, can we get a conversation about the technique of being restrained by the police with the knee? I agree, which is asphyxiation. Jesus. But yeah, so she wants to talk about, being restrained with the knee, or even, just the choking restraint. Because to me, that's still, I mean, it's technically not choking because it's not his throat, but still, I mean, that's all in that same realm. So just so you know. I'm sorry.
Who did that comment come from?
Margie Tate, big sis.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that comment. Yeah, this is interesting. Now, if you're just not joining us, now we've kind of been like all over, bringing all of this in. We're talking about how all of this has affected us as sisters, psychologically, as mothers, as wives, as daughters, how all of this news, the events, these horrible events have affected us. This is what the conversation is about here on today on Mind, Body, and Soul. What I want to do right now is actually play the spoken word, because that'll kind of bring things in together a little bit more for us. Thank you, Elder Kevin McGee. He has a show entitled Connections, and the Lord blesses him to pen a spoken word for the current topic on Mind, Body, and Soul on a weekly basis. It's rarely that he misses penning anything for us. So I always tell him how much I appreciate him and the gift that God has given him. So as I get this set up, I want you guys to take a listen, and you ladies, give me a thumbs up if you can hear it.
Looking at our country from an Elmer Fudd perspective, be very, very quiet. They're hunting black men. Open season on melanated brothers, all because they dispute our color. Treated worse than second-class citizens, becoming a Gestapo state with Gestapo tactics. Trying to turn back the hands of time, calling on the ghost of Jim Crow. Our crime, being born with huge skin. Whether driving, jogging, walking, talking, laughing, playing, sitting, in your home, just plain old living, you are open game. White collar or blue is all the same in the eyes of the entitled states of America. When sons ask their parents, why do we go to school when we will be dead before we graduate? That's our current state. And shut your mouth. Don't dare ask questions, because that's a guaranteed case against you or a trip to the morgue. Black boys and girls incarcerated because they fit a profile, even though they were miles away, stuck in a system that has always been against them. Truth be told, the only thing that is serving and protecting us are our phones, because without it, Armand's death would have faded with a whisper, and Trayvon's last call would not have painted his last scene. iPhone and Samsung are the police who polices the police. Now, don't get me wrong. Not all of the boys in blue are bad. Some are good, but the bad apples make the whole bunch undesirable. So if my sons are pulled over for some trumped up offense, I tell them what to do so they can make it home alive. Hit and record and go live. Hands on wheel, palms up. When asked for ID, repeat the request loudly and ask for permission to take hand to reach in back pocket to retrieve license and to grab registration from glove box. Wait for permission given. Grit and bare your teeth, even though you know your rights. The video will be our advocate while hundreds view Officer Friendly's actions. 21st century game, but the rules are still the same. LWB, living while black, is a threat to the established world, but we will not go back. We will not be silent. They have opened up a can that they cannot close, uncovered dirt that they can't sweep under a rug. Their shoulders they can no longer shrug. The footsteps of marching are being drowned out by the cries of war. Hunting season has opened, but I pray that they understand that they may be the ones who will be hunted.
Thank you, Elder McGee. You did it again. It's really, really hard to, that was actually kind of hard to listen to, because it is reality. It's our reality now. And I hate it. I hate that that's our reality.
I know, it's like, why? Why?
That's how I feel.
Why?
Many of you know the 5 stages of grief, and then there are 2 more that have been added. But denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. And it's not only when you physically lose someone. Grief is in all stages. It's for various things. You can have grief or those stages when you're going through a divorce or a separation. I'm angry. I'm angry when things really started. I don't want to say really started popping up, but when it was talked about more about how you need to sit down and talk with your sons and talk with your daughters about how they need to present themselves, or if they ever got stopped by the police, this is what you do. You know, just like he said in the spoken word, keep your hands on the steering wheel, keep talking out loud so they'll know what you're doing at all times. I'm angry that it has to be that way. I'm angry and it needs to change. I'm tired of it. No, I don't have children, but I have nephews. I have cousins. I have nieces. I have loved ones that I care about. And like you said, Dee, when your husband goes to work and when he comes home, you're worried, you're concerned. That time of night, you're still dealing with the curfew hours. You don't know if he's going to be stopped, and you know your heart is racing until he gets in the house. I'm angry that it has to be that way.
Can I say something?
Yes.
You just made a statement, and I put a post up, and this is in reference to the fact that it is the way that it is. But the post was by this, I don't know how many people follow Frank Somerville, but he and his wife years ago adopted a little Black girl. And he, you know, she's now 15, and he had put up a post, you know, and I shared it. But he was like, you know, okay, he took her to the hair supply store. And he was like, well, okay, basically, I'll be out here when you finish your shopping. And she was like, no, Dad, I need you to go with me. And he said that was when the reality of my baby's life is, you know, because she has a Black boyfriend or whatever, which is, you know, he has no issues with, but he was like, that was when her reality and her boyfriend's reality truly slapped him in the face, because he said it was at that moment when she verbalized, no, Dad, come with me, that he realized that, okay, well, I know I'll be okay. I'm protected because I have my white dad with me. He was like, that was when that was when things that we as Blacks deal with on a day-to-day basis slapped him in his face as a white Christian man, because his Black daughter was like, I can't go in the store unless you go with me, because Dad, they follow me around, follow people that look like me around in the store, just because I look like me. You know, I have my hashtags. My skin is not a weapon. His skin is not a weapon. Our skin is not a weapon. Complying but dying. I'm like, I'm tired, like you, Annette. But, you know, unlike you, I'm not as diplomatic with how I say things sometimes. You know, you and Gwen say things so eloquently.
Sometimes.
Well, even when you snap off, you're eloquent. Me, I'm just like.
Let me ask you ladies a question. I want to ask you ladies a question. And I'm going to provide to both of you a parallel to what you just said, Demetria. So there is rioting and looting going on as a result of this protest, where George Floyd's death is the catalyst. We know it was not the beginning, but it's decades, centuries old. So non-Black America is in fear of their property and their lives as a result of this, correct? We live this fear every day. And just like you said, that Caucasian father came to that realization. Do you think they hear us now?
And that's your question to us.
Well, not only that, do you think they hear us now? And then does that mean then this means of protests, the rioting and the looting, then is that not effective?
Well, here, let me say this. There are a couple of things that I want to say on this. Do they hear us now? Do they hear us now? Because we've been living this, and now they hear it. Maybe, I don't know if they hear us now. I'm not sure if that action is what's going to make them hear us. And honestly, the looting, I'm totally against. I don't care whether it's against corporations or small businesses. I'm totally against that. That's just me. That's Annette. I can't stay. I hate it. That's another thing that makes me angry. I hate it. I literally hate it. I don't think that I have to loot to get you to hear me, because that, to me, I'm just going to be honest with you. It seems as if, and people may get mad at Annette, I normally don't say much. But to me, it's almost like, is that the only way that I can get you to hear me? Is for me to tear up stuff? There is another way. There's another way where I'm not affecting others' lives or livelihoods. I know I'm not gonna go and tear. Okay, I tear your stuff down. Now, can you hear me? No, that's just not me. That's not my approach, and I don't approve of it. That's just it. Bottom line. I think there's another way that it can be done, which is why I want to have conversations like we're having now, to sit down and maybe talk about changing laws or what have you, but not the looting. No, not the looting. I don't know if I answered the other question or not, but do you want to go and answer that?
Sure. Now you already know that my stance is on the opposite end of that.
Yes.
And that's why this is so awesome, because Gwen is that middle piece that keeps the pendulum balanced between, amongst the three of us. For me, when I think of the looting, you're talking about, can you hear me now? When we had Black Wall Street, when we had the area in New York that is now Central Park thriving, and we were basically minding our business, but they didn't like it. Our lighter brighters didn't like it. They didn't even so much as give warnings. They just came in and was like 2 tears in a bucket. Screw all you all, screw the lives that are gonna be lost, screw what you lose as far as your homes, your livelihoods, and all of that. Did that get our attention? Yeah, it made us mad. And at that point in time of, history, those things kind of brought us together as a culture to make differences. It made our great grandmothers and grandmothers and grandfathers and, great greats even come together and pull their pennies together to build what are now our HBCUs, which are, those high schools, for the most part, those historically Black high schools and, elementary schools that most of our loved ones matriculated through. That brought them together. That it began the group economics on a different scale. So for me, I don't give a happy ham sandwich if they like it or not. My thing is, I don't want it to be, I don't want all of this to just be because of a case. And I say it all the time. Don't let us get in an uproar over a case. Let us be in an uproar over the cause. Basically me saying, okay, if we're fed up enough to keep going through this friggin' cycle, okay, they televise and make the killing of another Black man popular on social media or over the news, over the airwaves. So we get mad and we start doing what we're doing now. Everybody's looping together, singing Kumbaya and, you know, oh, we need to do something. Okay, cool. Time out for that. Time out for all the talking. I applaud those organizations that are already coming together, and there are some, you know, nationwide. I applaud all of those things that are happening. But just like our individual denominations, and I'm getting ready to take it there, are sending out messages for COVID-19 for the various churches, you know, where it's starting at the top and the information is being put out there. Those denominational heads need to come together, but because for the most part, the Black church is where most Black people get their information. It's where they look to for guidance for most. Mm-hmm. So just like they can come together and have the National Baptist Convention president come out and say, you know, at this time, because of COVID-19, blah, 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 I suggest, just like with the Church of God in Christ, the leaders coming out saying, because of COVID-19, I suggest, blah, 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 blah. How about those, and I'm just using those two as an example, because there are more. But how about all of our religious leaders come together and say, look, this is what we need to do, along with those social organizations that are not religious based, because not everybody is a part of the church. We need to come together as a unit for our culture.
Yeah, I agree.
Point blank.
Okay.
So for me, tear it up as long as it ain't Black.
Well, me, you forgot me.
Huh?
I said in the beginning of the show, I'm not going to condemn. I refuse. If you would like for me to condemn, and I'm not speaking to you guys specifically, then you hear what my people are saying first. And I hate to say it that way, but I'm going to leave it right there. But I want to encourage all of us, because we're going to have differing views. That's just how we are. And in the same household. And the question that I just posed to both of you, she and I don't necessarily see eye to eye or agree with, and that's okay, because we have different views. And I think, you know, collectively, when we realize that as a people, that we all have something to contribute, then I think we'll move forward a whole lot faster, because, you know, it may work for you because you have a different viewpoint than I do. You've got a different journey. Your experience is a little different. You know, you talked about earlier, Dimitri, about, you know, the people who were looting, who might have said, well, I don't have shoes. Some people might even believe that we're looting. Some of our people that we're looting might even believe, well, this hits them in the pocket. So this is an economic protest, a different way, rather than withholding your dollar, right? So people's experiences are different, but I think we all need to come together and respect that we will have differing views. You know, I said this actually, you know, to my family the other day and a couple friends. One thing that I've learned during this time since George Floyd's murder is that we are in a war, but there are different responsibilities for each one of us in this war. And as long as we do not lose sight of what we're trying to do and what we're trying to gain, and not allow others to change the narrative, and let's not, even grab hold to that changing of the narrative ourselves, then we're better for it. We don't, everybody's not going to be on the front line. We can't have everybody on the front line. We need somebody, in camouflage. We need somebody behind the scenes. We need somebody, who's replenishing ammo, so to speak. So everybody will play different roles. And I actually had to say this to somebody on social media a couple days ago because they were so upset that they didn't hear from a certain celebrity publicly. That's not everybody's cup of tea. Everybody doesn't have to respond publicly, but that neither does that mean, number one, that they're not affected by what's going on, or number two, that they haven't done something for the cause. It's just what it is. I didn't hear anything from John Legend and Chrissy Teigen publicly. I know I didn't, but guess what? I know they're bailing people out of jail. So everybody has their role, and everybody's not going to be in the forefront, and that's okay. And even some things that those people on the forefront do share publicly, I may not agree with, but I'm gonna stand with you. Keisha Lance Bottoms, I love you, my beautiful sister, Mayor of Atlanta. But some of the stuff that she said the other day, I just didn't agree with. But it's okay, because we cannot lose sight of the cause. We cannot afford to. So let's not.
All right, all right. This has been good, guys, and we are wrapping up. I want to say a few things before we end, but let me acknowledge some others that I did not already. Edward Johnson is on. Thanks for watching. Trish, our childhood friend, is on. Trish Harding, we appreciate you. Thanks for watching. Angela is on, and she says, my friend's girl had that same experience with her Black sons. The store clerk was hassling them, and when they came back with their white mother, she was singing a different song. So yeah, we know all of that. Darius Thompson, our young cousin, is on. Thank you so much for, well, you're young no more, Darius. Wendy is on. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you. Let's see, and Earl Winfrey, a shout out to my producer, because I jumped right into this session on today. And of course, we're here on Facebook Live, but also on my YouTube channel, which, by the way, have you subscribed? Please take time to subscribe. And Key Marie is on. We appreciate you, my niece. Thanks for watching. Let's see here. Let me wrap up with a few things on today. I do thank each of you that are on the Facebook Live, that are on the watch party. I think there's a couple of watch parties going on. So if I didn't get a chance to get to read your questions and your comments on today, I do thank you and I do acknowledge you. Appreciate those for joining us. So we're just having a sister chat on today, talking about how all of this stuff that we've been experiencing lately has affected us psychologically, because it has. Don't think that it has. We may not say much. We may not sit you down and say that this is what bothered me, but trust and know that it has affected us. Sometimes I just have to go in my room at night and just cry out to the Lord and just pray and just lay. The other night I sent my family on the family thread. All I said was pray, pray, pray. And I was just, I just want us to just pray, and sometimes that's another way, of course, for us to make change or change some narratives. But don't just leave it at that, though. You know me. We got to do something else as well, and I believe God has instructed us some things that we can do to change this narrative. Here are some facts. The police killings of unarmed Black men lead to poorer mental health among Blacks. That is a fact. Unfortunately, we've heard that police kill about 300 Blacks a year. That's male and female, and half of them are unarmed. Now, what I want to leave with a lot of these families, because some of you that are watching, you unfortunately have experienced this personally. You've experienced this, firsthand, or someone that has. We don't want you to think that you have to go through this alone. We're here for you. We're here with you as your sisters, as your relatives, your loved ones. We're here, and we don't want you to think that the death of your loved one was in vain. So we want to do what we can. We want to put our heads together and do what we can to help. There was a This last vid I saw that I'm going to mention today, it was a post on social media where I don't know who the lady was. She started it off and she asked the question, when did my child become a threat to you? She asked the question and various ones answered it. You guys may have seen it. But one of the answers that touched me, it was a young Black boy. And he said, when I was born, I was done.
Wow.
I was
Wow.
done. I was done. I think that if we would realize, and I've said this time and time again, and many have said it, as a Black people, if we would realize who we are and come together like we should, realize our strength, realize what has been instilled within us, I think we would be the better for it. I think we would be better off. We got to change it. There was a peaceful protest on last evening in the Bronzeville area, and I believe Youth Pastor John was out there as well. And I saw his live feed, and I also saw another one of my friends who's a pastor, Alan Connolly had his live feed going yesterday. And at the end of that live feed, the end of that protest, when they got to their destination, they had different ones to talk. Chris Harris, I believe Pastor Chris Harris is the one that put that march on. There was a hashtag that he asked everyone to do. Hashtag, what comes next? What comes next? So that's my question to each of you. You can throw that in here. You can do a hashtag here on my live feed as well. What comes next? But he also gave a number that you can text that to. And if I can find it, I'm going to put it in the comments section. But what comes next? What next, guys? What do we do? What can we do to change this narrative? What comes next? And I think that if we put our heads together, we can make this change. We can do it. We can do it. Gwen, before I go real quick, you said you're going to mention a couple of organizations. Maybe that can be under what comes next. So what do you have for us?
I honestly thought that was your lead-in.
Hey, we had a little works that out.
A couple of things real quick. It starts, of course, with us. This is all in our hands, and we've got to, affect change. Corporate America. I want to say this real quick. Our nephew actually sent to us this morning a post from Ben and Jerry's, which is probably the most real corporate America stance since the George Floyd murder that I've seen. The murder of George Floyd was the result of inhumane police brutality that is perpetuated by a culture of white supremacy. What happened to George Floyd was not the result of a bad apple. It was the predictable consequence of a racist and prejudiced system and culture that has treated Black bodies as the enemy from the beginning. What happened to George Floyd in Minneapolis was the fruit born of toxic seeds planted on the shores of our country in Jamestown in 1619, when the first enslaved men and women arrived on this continent. Floyd is the latest in a long list of names that stretches back to that time and that shore. Some of those names we know: Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, Oscar Grant, Eric Garner, Trayvon Martin, Michael Brown, Emmett Till, Martin Luther King Jr., and most we don't. Okay, so what's next? You guys, we have to move. It's not about being upset anymore, crying anymore, and God knows my sister and I have cried so much this past 9 days. But we've got to take action. Shout out to Superintendent Michael Eady for getting the word out to Church of God in Christ to be a part of that peaceful protest yesterday. God bless you. I sent a little bit earlier, and you guys can find this in the comment section, President Obama. Go visit him on Twitter. Maybe not necessarily his foundation, although you can find some things in his foundation, but go follow him on Twitter. It's in the notes. Dr. Anita Phillips who's a licensed clinical social worker out of the Church of God in Christ. Go follow her, please, on Instagram. I supplied that as well. Not only does she give insights as to how evangelicals and other non-Black Christians should deal with this situation, but also we in the church, the Black church in general. Eddie Glode, he is a Princeton University chair of African American Studies. Please go follow him on Twitter. DeRay McKeeson, co-host of Pod Save the People. He's on Twitter. Yamiche Alcindor, and you guys usually see her. She's a White House correspondent and a journalist as well. Please follow her on Twitter. Marilyn Mosby, who's the Baltimore State's attorney, who was instrumental in the Freddie Gray case. Please follow her on Twitter. Killer Mike, believe it or not, go follow Killer Mike on Twitter. Jamel Hill, a lot of us know her, as a sports journalist, but the girl is a fiery civil rights advocate. And believe it or not, Sean King, he's a Caucasian civil rights activist. Go follow Sean King, please, on Twitter. And I implore you, church people, it's not going to be smooth, nice. Everybody's not going to have the language that you desire, but we cannot lose focus of what we need to do. Just like Demetria mentioned earlier, I mean, we're going to have some believers and non-believers, but this is about us as a community in this America. Just like my uncle, Pastor Adams, used to say, and the late Apostle Richard Hinton, first naturally and then spiritually.
All right, Gwen, do me a favor. Thank you for all of that, but I didn't see it on the actual live feed. Maybe you put it on the watch party. So can you make sure that they're in both places? So that we'll make sure we can reference all of those individuals that you have stated. And I appreciate that. Thank you so much. You guys that are just now joining us, we're about to go right now, but I do appreciate each and every one. Dee, thank you so much. I appreciate you. I see you are like in tears, as I am. We're both crybabies. We're all crybabies anyway. But again, we're going to allow these tears to motivate us to do something, to make a difference, to make a change. Thank you for engaging with me on this afternoon. And all of you that are here on Facebook Live, on YouTube, on the watch party, you've been seeing me. I've been going back and forth everywhere trying to make sure I'm catching everybody. But let this show make a change. Let this show make a difference. Here at Mind, Body, and Soul, we want to make a change. All right, we're going to get out of here. You guys, make sure you join me next week. I have a guest that I'm going to get I have a guest on next week. Brandon will be on my show on next week. Brandon Walls. Fred, I'm sorry, he's Fred on Facebook. He's probably going to get me for calling the other name. This is a young man who has his own business, and we want to highlight him on next week. He actually had a powerful video the other day about how all of this is affecting him as a young man. But we're gonna talk with him on next week. So keep up with us. Go to my website, www.GetCaughtInANet, ANET, you will find us. You will see past shows, upcoming information. You'll see a section on my positive mental health tips. I believe the Lord has given me to do that. And we're just trying to, my concern is our mental health, that we are definitely taking care of our mental health. We take care of the physical. You feel a little pain, you run to the doctor, but let's look after our mental well-being as well. So again, thank you guys. Follow us. Make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel as well. I'll send you out a free copy of my newsletter. I don't think that you want to miss that. So make sure you do that. We're going to get out of here. And again, thanks to my producer, Earl Winfrey, for your assistance on today. And we will see you guys next week. Thank you, ladies. I love you so much.
Get caught in a net with Annette. For your mind, body, and soul. Get caught in a net with Annette. She's intellectual radio show. Here to inspire you, encourage you to be your very
right. Guys, thank you so much again.
Love you.
Next week, another opportunity for you to get caught in a net. Take care.